I really don't know which is more dumb, turning on amusement park rides or shooting off fireworks. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. As part of my 2019 13 Nights of Halloween series, today I'm going to be talking about the 2019 zombie comedy sequel, Zombieland Double Tap. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All of my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Zombieland Double Tap stars Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson, Emma Stone, and Abigail Breslin, and was once again directed by Ruben Fleischer. It picks up years after the events of the first Zombieland film, and once again follows the adventures of Columbus, Tallahassee, Wichita, and Little Rock as they try to survive amid the zombie apocalypse. Delayed sequels are always a bit of a tricky thing. For one, the original movie is no longer at the forefront of people's minds. Even if they did initially want a sequel, it's been so long that they've given up hope that one would ever come. Delayed sequels offer challenges beyond the audience, too. It can be hard to get a group of actors together again, and even if you manage to do so, they're older, so you need to contend with that, especially if there were kids in the first movie. And then, of course, you've got the challenges that any sequel faces. Having to live up to the first movie, needing a story that's unique enough to differentiate it, but not so unique that it alienates fans of the original movie. It's hard, and it's a big risk. The first Zombieland movie is one of my favorite horror comedies, and it's one of those movies that came out at just the right time. We were on the cusp of the zombie popularity resurgence, and that movie delivered a fantastic mix of zombies, humor, and characters to satisfy nearly anybody. It was the kind of film that didn't need a sequel, but was one that everybody kinda wanted more of. A year went by without any hint of a sequel, then 2, then 5, and before you knew it, everybody, including myself, had forgotten that they even wanted a second film. But here we are, a decade after the release of the first film, with Zombieland Double Tap in theaters. I have to say, I was kinda surprised by my general lack of excitement going into this movie. I definitely wanted to see it, but considering my love for the first one, I thought I'd be a little bit more hyped for this. But I think it was actually for the best, because I think if I had really high expectations, I would have been disappointed. Which might sound confusing, because this movie, in large part, is very similar to the first film. That unique style that helped to set the first one apart from other horror comedies is back. We've got the rules, complete with plenty of on-screen titles, super slow-mo zombie kills, and cutaways to the zombie kill of the week, and new this time around, of the year. The style isn't the only familiar thing here. Although this film is a bit more plot-driven than its predecessor and tackles a different story, many of the main plot beats are the same. We once again have our core group of characters splitting up with an end goal of reuniting. Even though he found his Twinkie in the last movie, Tallahassee is ultra fixated on another passion of his in this one. And even the frustrating stupidity of the third act is replicated here. It never feels like a carbon copy of the first film, but it does feel very familiar. That's not to say that that's a bad thing, though. If you liked the first movie, there's inherently a lot you're gonna like about this one, too. A large part of what made Zombieland so good was the characters. The zombie stuff was fun, and the comedy was good, but you grew to really care about the 4 main characters. Luckily, all 4 are back in the sequel, and they do still provide the same service for the film and the audience. Although they have many of their same traits and quirks we grew to like in the first movie, they have changed some. A good deal of time has passed, and they've grown up and developed since we last saw them. These changes actually act as a major catalyst for the story, specifically with regard to Little Rock's desire to experience new things, meet new people, and simply be somebody other than the kid of the group. In addition to our core 4, this film introduces a number of new characters as well. Some of these additions are good, but it really is a bit of a mixed bag. The first new character we're introduced to is Madison. Based on the trailer, I thought I was gonna hate her. And I did. She brought a lot of humor, but man is she an irritating character. Similarly, the characters of Berkeley, Albuquerque, and Flagstaff resulted in a few moments of humor, but not much else beyond that. Nevada was the only new character that truly felt like a good addition, because she was there for more than just the comedy. I can understand why the filmmakers wanted to bring in some new characters, but I don't think it was necessary. Luckily, the focus never deviates too much from our main characters, but even so, I think I would have preferred another adventure with only our core four. Zombieland Double Tap isn't groundbreaking, and it's certainly not as good as the first film, but I don't think anybody expected it to be. This movie still delivers on its humor while arguably upping the gore and horror aspects as well. There are plenty of fun references to other zombie movies, and even quite a few callbacks to the first Zombieland movie, including a subtle Twinkie reference and some more Code Red Mountain Dew. It's been a decade since our last adventure in Zombieland, and although I think the ideal window of opportunity for the sequel has passed, I'm still glad we finally get more to the story and a chance to see where these characters are now. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one has definitely gotta be the core characters. They were the best part of the first film, and still the best part here. Zombie movies can never be more than just temporary entertainment without great characters to root for and care about, and the core four deliver that again. Up to a point. I'd argue that they're not quite as compelling here as I would have liked them to be, but it was nice to see a bit of development from the first film and some more of their entertaining interplay. My second pro might sound negative, but it's actually something that I think benefited this movie. It's more of the same. The style, the characters, the plot beats, the humor, it's all very reminiscent of that first movie. And that works to this film's advantage since the first movie was quite good. Even though this is more of the same, I do think that it's a slightly watered down version. Certainly still very entertaining, but what seems smooth and effortless in the first movie comes off feeling a little forced this time around. As far as cons go, my biggest issue is probably the new characters. Although they provide for a few good laughs, I think they were ultimately unnecessary additions, and I would have much preferred a story that focused solely on the core four again. I will say that I did like Nevada, and I think you could argue that she truly contributed to the story, but the other new characters really didn't offer anything beyond a few comedic moments. Madison was especially grating to me, and I think this movie would have been quite a bit better had her character not been such a big part of the film. My second con is that I think the sequel came out too late. We're in the midst of the zombie popularity decline, and the first film really isn't at the forefront of horror pop culture now like it was before. So I think that really hurt this movie's momentum, both in terms of the story and potential audience. Although the story does acknowledge that time has passed since the first film, I think it could have gone further in terms of incorporating that into the story. I'm sure some people have no problem that this took 10 years, but I think I probably would have enjoyed this movie more if it had come out in 2012. I'm gonna give Zombieland Double Tap 3 out of 5 paws. Even though I enjoyed this movie and appreciated the slightly more plot-driven narrative, I can't help but feel a bit underwhelmed by it. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's a disappointing follow-up, but it just doesn't have the same magic as the first one. I would recommend Zombieland Double Tap to fans of the first Zombieland. You'll notice quite a few similarities between the films, and many of the things you enjoyed in the first Zombieland make an appearance here. This could still be enjoyable to somebody who hasn't seen the first film, but has the potential to be a bit confusing. If you didn't like the first movie, I don't think there's enough here that's new or different that would change your opinion of the franchise. If you liked Zombieland Double Tap, I've obviously gotta recommend the first Zombieland. It took a well-known horror subgenre and put its own unique spin on it to produce something thoroughly entertaining, and much of that carries over to this sequel. Since we're talking about a zombie comedy, I'm sure you all know what film I'm gonna recommend next. Shaun of the Dead. Seriously, it's the pinnacle of the genre, plus it gets a subtle nod in this one. And if you just want another wacky horror comedy sequel featuring the undead, you might want to check out Army of Darkness. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Zombieland Double Tap? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's an underwhelming sequel to a movie you loved? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.